Hello everyone. My group and I had Walgreens for our strategic management project. So let's start things off and get into a little bit of an introduction about what Walgreens is and who they are as a company. Walgreens is one of the largest and most recognized pharmacy in the US, offering healthcare services, prescriptions, and daily essentials. Walgreens was founded in 1901 in Chicago, and it has grown into a nationwide network and now operates globally through Walgreens Boots Alliance. The company's strategic direction is anchored in its mission to be a trusted healthcare and wellness provider, and its vision to be a first choice for everyday healthcare. Walgreens operates in a rapidly evolving environment shaped by rising healthcare costs, consumer demand for convenience, and digital health innovation. Strategic management is critical for navigating competition from CVS, Walmart, Amazon, and other emerging telehealth providers. The company leverages strengths such as strong brand equity, high store accessibility, customer loyalty, and expanded healthcare partnerships. This case evaluates Walgreens' internal capabilities, external market pressures, and strategic challenges, including declining retail traffic and reimbursement pressures. Strategic management sets the foundation for assessing Walgreens' current strategies and identifying opportunities for long-term growth, modernization, and competitive advantage. So getting right into Walgreens' vision statement, it says to be the leading partner in reimagining local healthcare and well-being for all. This pretty much means, in simple terms, that they want to be the most trusted and preferred place for health and wellness needs in every community by focusing on pharmacy services, customer care, and convenient access. Walgreens' mission statement says to create more joyful lives through better health. This means that Walgreens aims to improve people's health and overall well-being by offering accessible services, products, and supportive care. So just a little background and more history on Walgreens. In 1901, like I said, they were founded in Chicago by Charles R. Walgreens Sr. And then moving forward to the 1910s to the 1920s, they expanded to multiple stores and finally became incorporated in 1916. And then they went public in 1927. In 1952, Walgreens opened its first self-service drugstore. And then jump forward a little bit to the 1980s to the 1990s, they reached 1,000 stores and grew through acquisitions, and they launched their first drive-through pharmacies. More recently, in 2014, they merged with Alliance Boots, which they formed Walgreens Boots Alliance, or WBA. And then finally today, they are one of the largest pharmacy chains in the United States, transforming healthcare and wellness destination.
Alright, so for my part of the presentation, I'm covering the pest analysis from Workbook 2. The point of this analysis is to look at the really big outside forces that impact the entire retail pharmacy and pharmaceutical industry as a whole. So instead of just focusing on Walgreens, we're looking at the broad environmental issues that affect all the major players like CVS, Walmart Pharmacy, Rite Aid, and even independent pharmacies. To get started with the political and legal forces, right now the industry is still affected by years of the opioid litigation. The government has cracked down heavily on controlled substance enforcement, meaning that pharmacies are under a lot more pressure to verify prescriptions and flag suspicious activity. Another huge political issue is drug pricing reform. For the first time, Medicare is negotiating prices for certain high-cost drugs, which affects revenue models for every pharmacy chain. And on top of that, data privacy laws continue to expand. Pharmacies handle extremely sensitive information. So new HIPAA laws plus new state privacy laws create ongoing legal and compliance challenges. Moving into the economic forces, this industry faces high financial pressure. It's extremely expensive to develop new drugs, and most drug candidates fail before approval. When patents expire after about 20 years or so, generics or biosimilars enter the market, and they quickly reduce profits. Another big economic factor is the aging population. Older adults use the most prescription medications, so demand keeps increasing. At the same time, this puts strain on insurers, Medicare, and the overall healthcare system. Labor costs are also rising. Pharmacists, pharmacy techs, and healthcare workers overall are becoming more expensive to hire and to keep. All this affects margins across the industry as a whole as well. Next, we have the social and cultural forces. The opioid crisis hurt public trust in big pharmacy chains. Customers are more skeptical and they expect companies to be transparent, ethical, and to show their accountability. There's also a cultural shift towards sustainability, and people want companies to minimize waste, reduce emissions, and even show like social responsibility. These expectations influence what companies prioritize and how they communicate with the public. And for technological forces, technology is one of the fastest changing parts of this industry. Companies like Walgreens are introducing robotic prescription filling systems and AI-powered automation. This can increase accuracy and speed, but it also raises concern about job displacement and the loss of human interaction, which is something a lot of customers still value in pharmacies. As more prescriptions move online and telehealth becomes more common, cybersecurity becomes a major threat. Pharmacy data is extremely valuable to hackers, so companies have to invest heavily in protection and monitoring. And finally, for the environmental forces, pharmaceutical manufacturing and healthcare operations produce a significant amount of hazardous and non-hazardous waste. The industry also generates high levels of CO2 emissions due to production, transportation, and storage of temperature-sensitive medications. On top of that, there's a heavy reliance on single-use plastics. Everything from blister packs to medication bottles contributes to long-term environmental impact. As environmental concerns grows, companies face pressure to reduce waste and adopt more sustainable practices. And so overall, the pest analysis shows that the retail pharmacy and pharmaceutical industry is shaped by legal pressures, rising economic costs, major technological disruption, social expectations for responsibility, and environmental demands. And these external forces push companies like Walgreens to adapt to their strategy, operations, and future investments. And understanding these macro trends is important because they frame almost every strategic decision the company has to make moving forward.
We're going to be looking at the industry analysis for Walgreens. Walgreens operates within the U.S. retail, pharmacy, and healthcare services industry, which is undergoing significant transformation every single day. This is driven ultimately by shifting consumer expectations, increased competition, and the expansion of digital and telehealth services. The competitive rivalry in this industry is extremely high. It's almost like weeds growing around them everywhere in the garden. As Walgreens faces pressure from traditional pharmacy chains like CVS and Rite Aid, who actually just went out of business, which it may at first seem good for Walgreens, but it's not good because with Rite Aid being a similar business model to Walgreens, they need to think, why did they go out of business? Other major retailer pressures are coming from competitors like the offer pharmacy services and mail-in order, and as well as online pharmacies, which changes the game. Those mail-in order and online pharmacies are like Amazon Pharmacy, which just recently emerged in the last couple of years, especially since COVID. People want to be on their phones, order their medications, and have it shipped right to their doorstep. The threat of new entrants is moderate. Although regulatory and licensing requirements create barriers, technology-based platforms are making it easier for new digital-first prescription services to emerge. The threat of substitutes has increased as consumers now have alternatives such as online prescription fulfillment and mail delivery, as well as walk-in clinics offered by non-pharmacy retailers. The supplier power remains moderate because pharmaceutical manufacturers hold a very strong leverage over pricing. Although large chains like Walgreens can negotiate through scale, saying they can go to the supplier and say, we buy thousands and thousands of this medication, you're either going to give it to us at this price or you're not going to get our money. So Walgreens is able to do that, which is very nice for their business. The buyer power is very high as well, though, however, due to the price transparency and generic drug availability, as well as customers' availability to switch easily between pharmacies. You can drive right down the road and you can get to another pharmacy in most cases. The major industry trends, however, including a push toward integrated healthcare, rising demand for in-store health services, and increased emphasis on convenience and mobile app engagement, as well as growing pressures to lower drug prices, are reshaping the competitive landscape. Companies that embrace digital innovation and expand their clinical services, as well as streamline operations, are better positioned to succeed and win this race, making adaptation crucial for Walgreens as they move into as the industry continues to evolve. And they have to have a plan, a 5-year plan, a 10-year plan, and even a 20-year plan. They have to think, how are we going to stay in this, how are we going to survive, and how are we going to prosper, because that's ultimately what it's all about. Now looking at the internal analysis for Walgreens. Internally, Walgreens possesses several strengths that support its competitive position, beginning with its nationwide store network of thousands of locations, which provides unmatched accessibility and convenience for customers. The company also benefits from strong brand recognition and long-standing customer trust and loyalty. People trust Walgreens. They want to go there because they believe that Walgreens knows what they're talking about when it comes to their pharmaceuticals. So people do like that. However, and this has led to Walgreens to build a large pharmacy market share built over decades of hard work and dedication. Walgreens has also been able to heavily rely on partnerships such as its strategic collaboration with Village MD and other healthcare providers, which strengthens its ability to offer in-store clinical services and expand into primary care. Its digital platforms include the Walgreens app and online prescription management system to continue to improve customer engagement and operational efficiency. However, Walgreens faces internal challenges such as high operating costs tied to its large brick-and-mortar footprint. You have to go to Walgreens, where again, the online Amazon pharmacy, they go to you. It goes right to your doorstep, which a lot of people are leaning that way now, unfortunately, and that's the way the world is now. So Walgreens needs to adapt and change. And you have to think, what's going to be a challenge for Walgreens here in this world now? Some of it would be slower implementation of some digital initiatives compared to its competitors. They're all going digital. Walgreens is sticking with what's now. And also the recent financial pressures stemming from declining retail sales and narrow pharmacy profit margins. The company has also experienced organizational complexity due to frequent leadership changes and restructuring efforts to simply maintain competitiveness with its competitors. Walgreens must leverage its very strong physical presence in healthcare partnerships while streamlining operations, ultimately accelerating its digital transformation and strengthening its profitability across both the pharmacy and retail segments. And if Walgreens is able to execute on this, they will survive and they will be continuing their dominant reign within the pharmaceutical services industry. And if they don't, they will lose.
SWOT analysis, I focus on breaking down the main strengths, weaknesses, opportunities, and threats that Walgreens is dealing with and how all these explain where the business is right now. So starting with the strengths, Walgreens is a really big presence in a brand that people already trust when it comes to pharmacy and health services, and that gives them a major advantage. They also have strong store operations and a good distribution system, which helps them keep products in stock and move prescriptions quickly. And the partnerships with healthcare providers and insurance companies give them even more reach. For the weaknesses, a few things stood out. Their operation costs are very high, especially because they have so many physical locations. Retail sales have been slipping, which hurts their bottom line. And they've also been slower than competitors when it comes to digital tools, apps, and online services. And on top of that, they depend heavily on the U.S. market, so anything that affects U.S. economy hits them pretty hard. So then there's opportunities, which honestly line up pretty well with the direction the healthcare industry is heading. AI could help them improve efficiency and make their operations kind of run smoother. There's also a huge rise in telehealth, which they can continue to expand, and they'll have room to build more partnerships with healthcare systems, which can turn their stores into like the bigger health service hubs. So finally, the threats show where the pressure is coming from. So competition is intense, especially with companies like CVS, Walmart, and online pharmacies, which are beginning to kind of grow. Generic drugs also cut into profits, and any economic struggles makes people cut back on spending, including prescriptions. So overall, when you look at the four parts together, picture's pretty clear. I would say the company has a lot going for it, but to modernize and it has to modernize and adapt fast. The opportunities are pretty strong, especially in digital health and expanding services. But the weaknesses and threats that show that they can't really rely on their old model anymore. They have to lean into technology, improve their stores, continue building the partnerships they with the new healthcare providers, and lean into their strengths to stay competitive and grow.
Now, what should Walgreens do? We think that Walgreens should expand their healthcare service offerings using their strong brand, grow in-store clinics, vaccinations, and telehealth as demand for convenient care rises. Walgreens needs to use their trusted pharmacist reputation. They need to emphasize medication safety, expert consultations, and in-person support to compete with online and non-traditional competitors. Modernize and repurpose outdated store layouts. Walgreens needs to convert underused retail space into healthcare service areas to meet rising demand for accessible care. Improve internal training and workflow systems. Walgreens needs to strengthen customer experience by making it faster, more reliable, and more consistent. For structure, more clinical spaces and dedicated health service zones, increased role for pharmacy and patient consultation areas, and standardized layouts and workflows across stores. For systems, updated scheduling, telehealth and patient record systems, tighter integration between clinical and retail operations, and enhanced medication management, training platforms, and customer communication tools. For skills, stronger clinical expertise and customer care capabilities. Pharmacists need advanced consultation and safety skills, and staff needs to be proficient with digital tools, modern workflows, and clinical support. For the leadership approach, we think that Walgreens needs to move towards a more patient-centered, healthcare-driven leadership style with emphases on professionalism, safety, and innovation while encouraging adaptability and modernization across the entire organization. For staff, we think that they need to be hiring more healthcare professionals and upskilling their existing employees, increase pharmacist retention efforts and tech training, more pharmacy technicians and staff trained for hybrid retail health roles, and redesign spaces require training for efficient navigation and service. So, to wrap everything up, our analysis shows that Walgreens is standing at a major turning point. We reviewed its mission to create healthier, more joyful lives and its vision to become the leading partner in local healthcare. And we saw how those goals connect to the company's long history and their current challenges. Through our pest and industry analyses, we highlighted the pressures shaping Walgreens today. From the regulatory constraints and reimbursement cuts to rising competition from CVS, Walmart, and Amazon, as well as shifting consumer expectations towards convenience, transparency, and digital health. Internally, we saw a company with strong brand presence, national scale, and high customer trust, but also one facing declining retail sales, slow digital transformation, and organizational instability. Our SWOT showed very clearly that Walgreens has tremendous opportunities in areas like artificial intelligence, telehealth, and healthcare partnerships, but it must overcome operational inefficiencies and intense market competition to capture them. Based on these insights, our strategic recommendation is clear. Walgreens needs to evolve from a traditional retail pharmacy into a modern, accessible healthcare destination. It means expanding their clinical services, modernizing their stores, strengthening pharmacists' expertise, and building systems and workflows that support a more digital, patient-centered model. Ultimately, Walgreens' next chapter depends on how well it can leverage its existing strengths while boldly adapting to the future of healthcare. With the right structural, technological, and workforce shifts, Walgreens can transform challenges into long term competitive advantage.